All right, so now comes our last activity of the day, and we've talked a lot about stories and how stories get told. And one of the points that I would make about Greg's music video, and Tom, jump in, Nina, jump in if I get this right or wrong. Fundamentally, stories, and I've touched on this before, are about characters. They're about people. And in that music video, he becomes a character, right? He's toting a bale of hay, and or his brother is staring into the eyes of the cows, right? It's about characters.
It's about the connection to the human experience.
When you make your documentaries, do you look for characters?
You look for one person if you can find them.
Really? You try to build it around one person. So for those of you who are or want to be storytellers, the great simple line that I was told by a film producer not long ago, it's one we've all heard, is that the mission is very simple. Compelling characters, overcoming obstacles to achieve a worthy outcome. Sometimes the outcome, depending on what movie you watch, isn't so worthy, but it's the same thing. Compelling characters, overcoming obstacles to achieve an outcome. As you think about your storytelling, whether it's a farmer, or a woman in a village in Africa, or a person living in an inner city who doesn't have access to food, compelling characters, overcoming obstacles to achieve an outcome. Have I got that right, Nina?
Sounds good to me.
Would I get an A from you?
You got an A+.
I'm on target then. So what we'd like to do now is bring up our Storyfest judge panel, or our Storyfest comment panel. I'm going to announce them one at a time, and then we've got one other judge who is in the audience with us, who I'm going to shout out to. So first, Mitch Gelman. He's Vice President of Product at Gannett Digital. For those of you, hey, Mitch.
Frank.
How are you? Have a seat. For those of you who, anybody, now all the hands have to go up because Mitch is here. Who's read USA Today? Look at that, Mitch, they're all reading. Online, okay, online. Adam Connor. Adam Connor is Vice President of Politics at Brigade Media. He's an alumnus of the George Washington University. Hey, Adam. He was, Adam, have I got this right, the first Facebook employee in Washington?
That's correct.
Pretty awesome. First, a Facebook employee in Washington, trained four-star generals and members of Congress in what this new-fangled technology was, and has now started a new business, which you will hear about shortly. Thanks, Adam. Imani, cheers. You met Imani earlier. She's an assistant professor, I just promoted her. Assistant professor here at the School of Media and Public Affairs. She has traveled with Planet Forward students, and she works with students to develop their sort of multimedia storytelling, and is a perfect person to comment on this. Does it when she grades people. The man with the best name on the planet, Francesco Fiondella. Francesco Fiondella is head of communications for the International Research Institute at the Earth Institute at Columbia University. How are you? Have a seat. And, oh, that's for me, I guess.
Yes.
The other person I want to thank, though, is Valerie Huffbauer here. Valerie Huffbauer was a judge for our awards that we're going to present shortly. Valerie works at the World Bank and has oversees communication, a good part of the communication at the World Bank, so knows about how to communicate on a global level. All right, guys, so here's what we're going to do. I've got some clips that I'm going to run from videos that we saw from the finalists earlier in the day. I'm going to ask each of you, in turn or randomly, to comment on something that you think worked or didn't work. Mostly worked. We'll keep it mostly positive in the room. And then we've got some finalists that you haven't seen, and we'll roll those videos in. Interested in your comments, quickly, if we can do that from the audience. Then we're going to, well, no, we're not going to do the winners quite yet. I'll get to the winners after that. I'm going to do a little American Idol thing here and make everybody wait. Then I'm going to ask each of these guys, because each of these folks is actually paving the way in their own way for next-gen storytelling. I hope you guys outside got a chance to look at the virtual reality, the Gannett thing that Gannett brought over. That is thanks to Mitch. And if you haven't seen it here, you'll see it at the reception later. So let's start with our videos. Let me go first to one we played earlier. This is a finalist. This was played before Congressman Jim McGovern's panel. You may remember it, from American University. And Tony Brunner. Is Tony here? Where are you, Tony? Still in the room? On food waste.
Every day, not every week, not every month, every day, we're throwing away 150 million pounds of food.
All right, Adam. So in this video, there are lots of numbers, very focused pictures as he goes. Does it deliver a message to you?
I thought it did. I thought it did two things particularly well. One is which trying to put that in some sort of context. I believe there's a rhetorical question at one point where he says, I don't know how many acres of land that would take to grow that much food, but I imagine it's something like a lot. And then it's juxtaposed on the screen is the actual answer, which was some large number of millions of acres. I thought that was well. And then obviously I thought the kind of personal narrative of someone who was both passionate but kind of well-informed and taking action was, I think, a very compelling.
Francesco, you heard passion in there in the area of food waste. We've heard that a couple of times.
Yeah, so I think the idea of food waste is going to be something that will have an impact with a lot of people. I mean, I certainly learned a lot from watching this. And also I thought the video, the narrator was a protagonist, you know? He was very likable. He was
He emerged as a protagonist. Were you the narrator?
I was not. My narrator, I guess the person that speaks is my friend Bill.
Is he the student we see in the video? And he absolutely conveyed some passion, so an important thing. All right?
The other thing, Frank, I thought made that relevant was the distinction between commercial waste and personal food waste. And focusing it on commercial waste is a solvable problem as opposed to dealing with millions and millions of individuals. The focus on the commercial waste, I thought was
So
a
having a character,
wonderful
providing some
focus.
context. Imani, what worked for you?
There was a solution. I was really impressed. I actually am signing up and going to volunteer for their Saturdays. But for those who haven't seen the entire piece, there is actually a full-on solution where they're taking some of this food waste and individuals are preparing meals and then they go out and they feed people. So I thought it was absolutely amazing.
Let's look at the next clip. This is the one that preceded your panel, your earlier panel, Imani, on women and poverty. Climate makes it worse. This came from Alyssa Bruns at Unassuming here at the George Washington University. This is the one with words, music, and impact. All right, Francesco, tell me about this one.
So kudos to this one for trying a different method. I liked the information and how it was presented. However, the music was, I can say, got everyone's attention. When you showed this, I was upstairs, so we were hearing it in the viewing area, and everybody sort of stopped and looked to see what was going on. Personally, I felt after a while hopeless. Like the music was too intense, and all the really sort of depressing statistics. I just felt like, wow, what's
Are you
what's
here
there
for
to
a
be
party?
done?
I mean, you know, I mean.
Right. So
I mean, it's kind of a depressing story.
It is, but so you want to have the problem, right? But I think you also want to make people feel like there's something to be done.
Adam, did you need to take drugs after watching that?
I did think that it did a great job illuminating the problem. I think it's a very tough problem to solve, and so I think that you don't necessarily have to provide solutions. You don't want to leave people feeling hopeless about it at the end of it, you know.
Nina was a judge too. Nina, what did you think of this one?
I felt the same way you did, which is that immediately I was captivated. And there's also animation to it. What happened is that it's about...
Give her the mic, that's fine.
About halfway through, I felt like it didn't evolve. So I felt like there was nothing that brought me to some kind of transformation. I felt like neither the music, which was very similar all the way through, and the animation, which was very similar all the way through, and the technique was very similar all the way through. By the end, I felt sort of, I was almost numb.
All right, if you were the producer or the teacher, what would you told them to do? Just shorten it?
Shorten it, provide some kind of a way past that material.
Okay, I want to know if Anna and Alyssa are in the room. You guys here? Where are you?
Anna's in the back. Okay.
Anna's in the
Got
back.
one.
There you are. I loved it. Okay, I loved it. I like being depressed. I'm a journalist. I do that for a living. It's fine. I think it's a really big problem. I kind of like throwing really cold water on people. I probably could have been a little shorter. I would agree with Nina on that. But I think it was effective. Anybody else?
I mean, I think one of the clear things there is you can tell a story or you can present facts even if you can't get, say, to Africa to take footage. Or there's still stories that we can tell today, even if you don't necessarily have kind of footage of it in person.
Okay, one more clip that we will take a look at before we start looking at something we haven't seen, and this is the pup. This is the piece that you guys saw from Purdue that these guys have been working on for several years. You remember this, the one $2,000 less piece of transportation equipment?
We are a part of a student team at Purdue University that has developed, in partnership with an NGO in Cameroon, a multi-purpose vehicle that we call the Practical Utility Platform, or PUP for short.
All right, cheap, easy transportation. There's animation in this piece. There's all the rest. Imani, what'd you think?
I love this one, actually, partially because I've been to a number of African countries where their exact point with the roads not being passable. So I thought that they did a great job of presenting the issue in the very beginning. You had a nice evolution where they presented their solution to what they saw was a really
Mitch?
big problem.
I thought it was great. You were talking earlier about characters, and I felt that in this case, and in one of the other videos that may come up later, that the characters don't necessarily have to be people, and that the producers of this clip did a wonderful job turning the pup into a compelling character and seeing it on those roads and I guess it was Africa and Cameroon and running through the ocean, just came alive. It was a great character. I fell in love with the pup.
Valerie, you see these videos from all over the world, right? Did this one work?
Let me talk about the one before. I actually loved it, and
The one that everybody was depressed over?
yeah, exactly. I think it.
You
could
like
have
to be
been-
depressed too. We get along.
Not as much as you. I think it could have been a little shorter. I think it could have been a little faster. But I think they did a fantastic job. I mean, in the business where I am at the World Bank, I mean, a video like that, I mean, this is something we could put on. I mean, it's pretty good.
Would you put that on at the World Bank?
I mean, this is the sort of stuff that we are
I mean,
interested
you're
in.
depressed over there a lot too.
This one I liked a lot. I think it's very well done as well. One thing though, on this one is, I think it goes a little too fast into the solution. I mean, development is very complex. You know, we brought bed nets for malaria and people don't use them. We think that the access to toilets is the issue in India, but we know that behavior is the thing that basically doesn't make people use them. This one's a little too quick to the solution to my taste, but I think in the execution is well done.
All right, great. Let's look at another one. Here's one you haven't seen before. This comes from Heather Crosby. Is Heather in the room from Sewanee? Heather. All right, awesome. So here's what Heather does. Heather takes a look at farmers, all right? Where are the farmers? Farmers, let's raise our hands, okay? So this one's dedicated to you. Let's take a look.
A farmer. You can read the lines on their face like a story of drought, too much rain, long days in the field, and a family tradition of tough labor. These are the hands that have planted, plowed, and picked every crop ever grown. You may need a doctor, a lawyer, and a policeman once in your life, but every day, 3 times a day, you need a farmer. But what if farmers stopped? What if the production of your food stopped? Would you know how to plant, plow, and pick the very food that nourishes your body? A necessity for living. Could you even name these crops? Or these? I challenge you to make farming part of your story. I challenge you to plant just one plant. I challenge you to raise one up for the farmer and plant one forward for your future. To connect with your food, to know the source and the process.
Is that your voice?
Yes.
Yeah? Did you write that?
Is this, yes.
So you wrote it, produced it, voiced it,
Yes.
the whole thing.
Told people where to stand.
What's
I
that?
said and told people where to stand.
You told people where to stand? You told them to raise his plant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my grandpa.
That's your grandpa. Okay, even better. Tom Batag, you've produced a lot of these. You talked about characters before. What did you think?
Terrific. It just immediately I mean, there is a character down to face, hands, to the wrinkles. Got me right at the top.
Okay, can I tell you something? If you have had Tom Batag call your video terrific, that is a very high honor, and it means a lot. What'd you guys think? Adam?
I thought it was great, and I thought the, it starts a little serious, but then the smiles, I think, really, and if I hadn't known you were related to one of them, I would have assumed there was some connection, because there really was, I think, a deep empathy there.
All right, Imani, you're the professor. What do you say?
I think it's excellent. I thought you did a really great job. I really enjoyed all your visuals, all of what I like to call the B-roll and the detail shots. I thought were absolutely stunning. So kudos to you. Good job.
All right. All right, let's move on to the next one, unless anybody else wants to jump in with some...
The details are great. She's the Scorsese of farming.
I will tell you, I was very impressed with your writing. Your writing was very nearly poetry. It was very, very well done. And it brought, when you talked about the lines and the face and the people, you brought them alive as characters, and that's what you want and need to do.
And then you took them out. You said, what if they're not there?
And and that dip to black. Okay, we saw your effect, what you were trying for there. All right, next one. This is another one I don't think you've seen. This is from Anders Larsen here at the George Washington University, also a finalist. It features a video, it's a blog, it's an infographic. It was filed as an overall package, and it was done by two of our students, Sumner Byrne and Eric Osman. Are they here? Sumner, there's Eric. All right, they're in the back. Let's take a look at what they did.
Harvest season on Seneca Air Farm, Ladensville, Maryland. Tom Linthicum, the owner, has been working from sunup to sundown every day. Now, all 1,100 acres of wheat, corn, and soybean are ready to go. He's a quiet man, methodical and calm until he talks about his animals, his farm, or his family. But his commitment to them shouldn't come as a surprise.
I started farming because I was brought up into it, and that's what I love to do. Some of the farms that we operate on have been in the family for over 200 years. I was always taught that as long as you take care of your ground, your land, it'll take care of you.
But that's not always true. While the world talks about climate change, Tom has seen it.
The operation has changed drastically over 200 years. We see more rain events with larger quantities of water, and that makes it very difficult to contain all that runoff.
Francesco, what's happening here is they introduce us to this character, and then they take this into this information. Now, I should tell you, the video goes on for about another minute or so, Sumner, and takes us into what Tom has done on his land to re-berm it and do drainage so that he can manage these new rains. So there's an innovation wrapped in here as well.
I thought it was very engaging. It was really nicely shot and cut. There's a few spots where the science guy in me wants to say, like, wait, what do you mean he knows that climate is changing, or how is it changing there? And I thought, just with a little bit of extra narration, you could have thrown in a stat that's reference to something like a more authoritative study, or just
so another source, another information source is what's needed.
Yeah, I wanted to understand how do you know that climate is changing in that way there?
Adam?
I thought it was good. I thought it could have benefited from maybe another minute or so in length. I think in particular there were two challenging concepts you had to introduce, one of which was the understanding of the runoff, and then two, the kind of pieces of technology that was installed, both of which probably take a little more complexity in explaining. So 30 seconds or a minute more probably would have benefited that second piece in terms of understanding what that technology and drainage did, because I didn't fully get that.
Sumner, Eric, anything you want to say? Okay.
But it was very well done, and I thought the characters were great.
Our next piece is also from George Washington University team, Lauren Pollack and Anahi Ruiz. I think no, I don't think we actually have seen this one yet. This one also. This is shot here in Washington. The two of them, like these guys, were in my class. Here they were taking a shot at telling a story of urban agriculture. Several of you talked about urban agriculture, so they went out to see what it looks like, and they had this story to tell.
I think I have the best job in the world because every day I get to visit people's homes who are thinking about growing food but haven't done it yet, and I get to tell them how great it's going to be and how much is possible.
When I was a kid, it was a huge pain in the ass because we have to go out to the garden and weed and pick stuff all the time, and Picking blueberries was the worst. You know, as you get older, you sort of realize that it's not necessarily a bad thing to go and do. It's a very productive feeling, and at the same time, you get like this big bowl of blueberries out of it at the end, and that's pretty cool.
Okay, so this is called Love and Carrots. The first character you saw there is a woman who started this business here in Washington, and she's basically a backyard garden consultant. And believe it or not, people actually are hiring her. Anahi, is Anahi in the audience? So Anahi, her business is growing pretty fast?
Yeah, it's growing very fast. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but she's had it for about like three or 4 years, but it's grown exponentially. And she has a staff about like 5 people. And so we went with her to one of the work sites, and I never knew gardening was so hard. I took a long nap afterwards, but she's doing really good.
So the main thing I had with this was the technical issue of the audio, right? We hear the wind blowing. That's a little distracting.
I agree. It's a little distracting. However, I actually really like this piece. I thought you guys did a good job, and there were some audio glitches. I chalked it up to natural sound versus not using a windscreen. So I took it as a whole part of the piece.
Frank, I thought that was part of the authenticity and the intent of the party.
I'm just a jerk, okay? She'll tell you that.
But the other thing that I loved about this video in terms of characters, the other inanimate character, and this character never appeared on screen. It was in one of the sidebars, and it was a shoe tree. And it was a woman standing out, or a gentleman, I think it was a woman, standing out on a balcony, talking about how by using a series of shoe trees, she could vertically grow, and that if everybody in the housing complex had access to these shoe trees and was able to vertically grow crops, they could essentially feed everybody in the complex. And I thought that was another character that was imagined and didn't even appear on camera that evoked a compelling connection for me and that sidebar.
Okay, Adam, one last comment?
I actually am thinking about putting in a garden, and someone had recommended me Love and Carrots, and so I was like, yeah, I can see the sustainability and potential in that policy solution.
All right, next one. We're back to community garden again. This one comes from Phoebe Ferguson from Furman University. Is Phoebe here?
Phoebe was unable to make it,
But you're representing her. Representing Phoebe Ferguson from Furman University, her community garden piece.
We started Mill Village Farms 2.5 years ago through a partnership between 2 churches to be able to do community development here in the greater Sullivan community, to reach at-risk teenagers 13 to 18, to teach them, to give them a job opportunity, to teach basic job skills, sustainable agriculture, and entrepreneurship. We utilized the research with Dr. Alicia Powers at Furman University to see the need for a mobile market to solve the food desert issue in Greenville. We worked with Loaves and Fishes, a food rescue agency here in town, to launch the mobile market to be able to reach other food desert communities through churches, businesses, and community centers. We're now growing on rooftops, out in rural communities, to be able to reach more teenagers in other communities, not just the greater Sullivan community where we first began.
Is Mr. Drone in the room?
I know, right?
Is he here? All right. How do you think they got those pictures at the end?
It's clearly a drone.
Right? Yes. So you used a drone. Folks, what'd you think?
I thought those drone shots are obviously beautiful, and I thought
So it's a really pretty piece.
It's a very pretty piece, yeah. My one little nitpicking comment would just be I thought that the music was just a little too loud, and it was difficult to hear one of the characters, and I really wanted to hear what he was saying because he was so passionate and enthusiastic about the program that he started and is working with. So that's my one.
Nina, audio matters.
Audio is the biggest part of filmmaking.
Yes.
You ever get sent back last minute because the audio didn't work? Yeah. Really? You ever miss a deadline because of that?
Can't do that.
Okay, we had 2 other pieces that were submitted because we had some submissions that were videos, some submissions that were blogs. One was the Beauty of Ugly Food blog that you guys saw, which is really interesting. It's a blog that explores the idea of answering the hunger question and reducing excessive food waste by actually discounting and marketing ugly food that otherwise gets thrown out. You know something about that, Francisco? No, I'm not saying you're ugly food, no. But food waste and all that story. I almost got in big trouble there.
I thought, so the the discounting, and again, this is a topic that I don't think certainly many Americans aren't exposed to, and so that the idea is a winner, you know. And I thought developing that further would actually resonate with a lot of people.
And this one was presented by Diana Wilkinson of GW. And finally, the last blog was a Feeding the Planet with Weeds blog that came to us from Allison Sainer from UC Berkeley. Is Berkeley's in the room, or was here, right? Was. And this is a really interesting blog that explores the idea of feeding yourself with weeds, not the kind they're growing legally in Colorado now, but the weeds that actually you'd kill otherwise, but you can turn them into salads and other things. In just a minute, from those finalists, so our judges judged, and they selected and they judged in this way. Which of these pieces has the most and best information, incorporates an innovation, presents the story creatively or compellingly, and has the potential to have real impact, to actually scale and to have impact? And I will give those awards in a minute, and the people who will win those awards will win a cash prize. I'm going to ask AJ to come up on the stage with me in just a minute. And then we will go to Rome together, presuming that we can all find a flight that we can fit on. But first I want to ask each, because everybody here is working in their own way on what I call next generation storytelling. And how many of you guys have had a chance to do the Oculus Rift virtual reality outside? Okay, one of you, a couple of you. At the reception that we're going to, which is at James Monroe's house, very cool place with very cool food just around the corner after we're done here, there's another Oculus Rift, another of the virtual reality setup. Put on the goggles and you will see three-dimensional, and hang on, because it may well knock you off your balance a little bit when you experience it the first time. But talk about this and why Gannett and you are trying and experimenting in these new storytelling technologies.
Yeah, like many of you, I have an 11-year-old son, and he is absorbed into Minecraft and Clash of Clans. And if you want to communicate with Chris, you've got to either sit down and explain, you know, how he can come up with a better strategy to upgrade his goblins or his town hall or his forces, or you know, sit down and do it with him. So how do we connect with the Minecraft generation? Not the millennials. The millennials will take care of themselves. We'll figure out ways to attract them. But what about this next generation, the Minecraft generation that's emerging out of people who grew up with video games, who absorbed into it? Look at the media that has shown growth in terms of its ability to make money. Not film, not television, not magazines, not newspapers, the gaming industry. The gaming industry is the fastest growing. It's bigger than film and television combined. The in-app purchase is the new subscription. How do we connect to this audience? How do we create content using technologies such as 360-degree video, gaming, rendering engines, and virtual reality viewing to connect with this next generation on their grounds? So is that the new front porch?
So is the next Tom Batag going to be doing Nightline pieces in 3D virtual reality?
Tom Batag may be doing Nightline pieces in 3D virtual reality by the end of the day if he wants to. I'd love to work on a project with Tom.
We all would. Yeah. But so you're actually saying that this is going to be, are you predicting or are you working on more of these things where this kind of technology gets brought actively into storytelling?
We've been playing with 360-degree video, and on Saturday morning, War Story, who is one of the Kentucky Derby entrants this year, will be wearing a 360-degree camera during his workout, and you will get to experience what it is like to ride a Kentucky Derby horse as he's prepping for the biggest race of the year. I think we're going to see a lot of this.
That's very cool. The virtual reality, if you check it out, is actually a 3D virtual reality view of a farm. And you will walk through the farm and look all around. So check it out when we go across the street. Adam, you were a pioneer at Facebook. Now you've got this thing called Brigade. What you're doing and what you did at Facebook and what you're doing now is all about using media to engage. So talk about that.
Sure. So I've recently joined a company called Brigade, which is a new startup focused in the civic engagement sphere. So one of the things we have a deep-seated belief in is that Silicon Valley and other technology companies have been very focused on a lot of other sectors. So they focused on messaging, and they focused on enterprise software. They focused on all sorts of various ways to connect us. But one of the sectors we think could use a little more investment, a little more attention is this kind of civic space of politics, of governance, of elections and things like that. And hopefully bringing together some of the technology and skill sets that have been so successful in other sectors there. So we're kind of starting to build a new platform and start to think about ways in which we can take the mobile phones we know people have and this new way of engaging and thinking about where we can leverage it there. So we'll be launching in a few months, and I think we hope to share that. But one of the things that has been important as we do this research is to think about how people think about themselves, how citizens, how activists, how elected officials, others think about themselves, and the tools to make them kind of the heroes of their own story. And I think that if there is anything that is universal in storytelling, it is kind of that base narration. And whether that's a political campaign ad or the origin story for a startup, stories really do tie these things together.
Imani, you've been working with, I'm going to call it iPad journalism, right?
Yeah.
And sort of telling for new mobile devices. But briefly, because we're almost out of time, running a little late here, but briefly tell us what you think and what you're working on for the future.
Well, we're really working on crafting really engaging storytellers, so hopefully they can get jobs at Gannett and Brigade. But most importantly, just trying to make sure that we are preparing our students for jobs that really don't exist yet and putting them in a sphere where they can hopefully use all of this technology. The storytelling never changes, but focusing them to use this technology.
Still need stories, still need characters, still need arcs.
100%. If they're in 3D, I mean, if it's not an interesting character, I don't care if it's in 3D or not. So I just want my students to make sure that they are effective storytellers, and then we're just using these different platforms to get those stories out.
Francesco, you have a particular area of focus and passion. Talk about it.
Well, so I work for this place called the International Research Institute for Climate and Society, and basically it's this center at Columbia University that's like a hotspot for climate expertise and knowledge and how climate impacts societies, especially developing countries' societies. And I think for me, the last year or so, I've been really thinking about ways to get the scientists that I work with to become themselves better storytellers. Because I'll tell you, people love science and they love scientists. And sometimes, you need to be the communications guy for them, but other times you just got to get out of their way.
So you produced something that was a little funky.
Yeah.
Different kind of storytelling.
Almost a 2 years ago, we started production on something called the Climate Models Wall Calendar. So what we did was we took 13 Columbia climate scientists and we had a fashion photo shoot with them.
Think of climate science meets the Sports Illustrated bathing suit issue.
Yeah.
Not quite.
And so the basic idea there was that sometimes there's a lot of sort of mystery around what scientists do and who scientists are. And so by kind of doing this sort of off-center, quirky project, you really can show that they have a lot of fun and they are very passionate, creative people that are willing to do a lot of different things to communicate their work. And it was a lot of fun for them and for everyone involved.
Mitch, we talked a lot about opportunities for students. You actually have a job offer here to make?
Yeah, if there's anybody out here who is a Unity 3D, particularly Unity 5 developer, this would be somebody who wasted a good portion of their high school years building games instead of doing homework. Now's the time. We have an internship working on some of our experiential storytelling at Gannett Digital this summer that if you let Frank know, I'd be happy to consider any resumes.
Are you joining us at the reception?
I'll be there for a little while.
So if you see him over at Monroe House, apply for the job. Could I ask the finalists whose pieces we just played or referenced to stand? Everybody stand if you were one of the finalists. You guys in the back of the room walk up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Representing Purdue? Furman. Okay. All right. This is the part I've been waiting for all day long. Can I ask AJ Marcondi to come up here? AJ is over with the UN, United Nations, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. And AJ and I sat down and we were talking about this contest. You can sit down now, it's all right. We'll get somebody up in a few minutes here. And he said, I want to engage people. And he said, I want to engage storytellers. And I said, have I got an idea for you?
Yes.
Tell them what we'll be doing.
Well, what we're going to be doing is that there are several things that we were interested in talking about.
Here, if you stand over here, we'll get you by the mics.
We were very interested in engaging the young. And a couple of things that came out today, which I think are very important. I don't think scientists are particularly good communicators. And the idea is for us to take the prize winners from today, and we're going to give them a small prize, but we're also going to take them over to Rome. And Rome is the headquarters of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. But the membership of FAO is 194 countries. So all of the things that we were talking about is the interface about science, technology, and politics. Think about 194 countries. So extrapolate. How do we engage with those countries? How do we start motivating a dialogue which is international? Now, one of the problems that I think we've had across the UN or the multilateral system is the convergence of domestic policies and international policies. And I feel that this is the way we have to change the paradigm to go forward.
So we will go to Rome, and we will mix and mingle with people from 194 countries.
Right.
And this should be an opportunity for you to both tell the story that you've told here, but also to listen and learn to new stories. What an unbelievable experience.
Right.
So should we do this?
We should. I just want to say a couple of other things very quickly, Frank. This year is particularly important because this year the UN system, the multilateral system, will roll out the Sustainable Development Goals for the next 10 years. And we are going to have something called Milano 15 this year, which is going to be in Italy, and Rome is going to do it. So it's a particularly important year, and the third event, which is going to happen in Paris at the end of this year, is called the Climate Negotiations.
Yes.
It's very, very big events. And I think the young really, not the young, but the generation that we have of students here have to be engaged in that if we're going to change the way that you do things.
So let us take a look at who our very first Storyfest winners are. I think this is very cool. I am thrilled to be doing this. I can't imagine a better prize or a better activity or a more relevant thing to do than to be able to take your story and then take it to leaders literally from around the world. We talked about this being an opportunity to use your voice, tell your story, and have an impact. So the first prize, which is going, we have two categories, one for the GW students and the other for our participating schools. And the first for the GW team goes to Anahi Ruiz and Lauren Pollack. Anahi, come on down. So Anahi's piece on love and carrots, small spaces.
Ironically, I don't eat a lot of carrots, but now I do.
Now you do. So here you go. Let's stand for a picture.
There you go.
We'll put you in the middle.
Oh,
There we go. Put you in. We'll get there. There we go. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Really well done.
Appreciate it.
All right. So now you and Lauren get to play hardball about who actually goes to Rome, or
She's
if-
already in Europe, so.
Oh well, I guess that answers that question.
She's studying abroad.
But we'll work later.
Okay.
Anything you want to say?
Thank you. Obviously, this is very important, and we're all invested in this topic and this issue, but of course, spread the word. I've been tweeting, and a lot of other people have been tweeting, but obviously use social media to get out there. So thank you, and it's been a pleasure.
Bravo. Thank you. Okay. Last one. This is for our non-GW students from the great finalist mix, and this prize goes to David Wilson and the Purdue engineering team. And I'm going to ask John to come up here for Pup. Congratulations. Congratulations. We'll stand here, and you're representing.
Students were here to do it.
I wish your students were here too, but congratulations to you. So tell folks just a little bit more, and our judges here, about the piece or about the technology and where it's going. Are you actually going to get this thing to market, or what's happening?
Yeah, I would say we're in the
Can you hear him in the back?
Yeah, I'll talk louder. We're in the phase of engineers trying to learn to be scale-up and business people, and we're having a lot of good mentoring at Purdue. We're partnering with our Foundry, which is our Center for Entrepreneurship. I have to pay tribute to the students. This project started several years ago, and there's been just outstanding young men and women on here that I wish they could be up around here. And so this is a combination of many trips, service learning, students learning, a great partner that's always requested different changes, and it's really been a partner-led collaboration in that. So I've learned a lot throughout the process, but I really just wanted to give the credit to the students to do that. It's gonna be hard to pick the one to go, but we got interest now in Nigeria, Haiti, Kenya, Tanzania. We got a group from Uganda visiting us when we go to Cameroon the next time to build one, and there's 4 orders in Cameroon for there. And so we're learning how to move from just a service learning engineering project to scale up, but we're
Well, if you want to know something about scale up, you should talk to this guy, Adam. This Facebook thing, maybe there's a little something you can learn from. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.